Good evening, my friends. Welcome to this new meeting to speak about numbers and what we just been through, which is COVID-19. I'll be waiting for a few connections in order to go further on the subject. So, good evening to the people that just connected. This evening we're going to speak about quite an issue. Everything that happens in life has a meaning. And so we're going to find out what is the meaning, at least the numerological meaning of what has just happened to us with the COVID experience. And we'll be examining it from different points of view. So welcome to who connected. Thanks for being here. We are going to speak about the numerological meaning of the experience we've been through, COVID-19. And we're going to be using the numbers. You know that for those that do not know me, I'm a numerologist and I love numbers and I deal with numbers, and numbers are something very important to us. They're considered creative agents and they influence our life. When we get to birth, we choose our numbers. We choose our name, our surname, and our date of birth. Because numbers are frequencies. And those frequencies have particular meaning to us. Also, numbers influence our life, and they also part of what we call a universal language. This is something I've been talking about in my last live streaming. They are a universal language because when we translate from one language to another, one word might not have the exact meaning in another word. This means that anytime we think, we let some frequencies, some light, and therefore some frequencies out of our third eye here on our forehead. This means that in one language, the frequencies we let out by means of our thoughts are different from the ones from another language. So we cannot actually have them one over the other. They are not exactly the same frequencies. This does not happen with numbers. Because when we think, for example, of the number 3 to the number 3, we think at the same thing, no matter how we pronounce it, no matter what is the language that we use, we do think always at the same thing. This means we always let in our environment the same frequencies. This is why numbers are part of a universal language. Hi, welcome to the people that just connected. Thanks for being here. So today, since anything that happens in our life has a special meaning, we will examine what COVID-19 means numerologically speaking and what is its message for us. As we said, anything that happens in our life has a point, is meant to be. There is a purpose for it to happen. And today we're going to examine why COVID-19 happened. What is the message it wants to bring to us, okay, from a numerological point of view? We all know that COVID-19 stands for coronavirus disease. It's short for coronavirus disease. So what we are going to examine is going to be COVID-19 and coronavirus 19. Disease doesn't actually matter because it stands just for something that actually is a disease. Both ways we get to the same point, as we will see in a little while. Hi to the people that just connected. Thanks for being here. I've been waiting a few minutes in this rainy day for some of you to connect. And so I guess, is everybody ready to get to know what COVID-19 was meant to be and why we should experiment the lockdown and what it brought to us and what is its spiritual message? Are you curious about it? Do you want to know about it? Are you ready? Okay, then let's go. Here you will see that actually the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, in numerology, any single word, letter can be converted into numbers. This is due to an ancient science that is called gematria or gematria. So COVID stands for 3 plus 6 plus 4 plus 9 plus 4. And if we sum up these numbers and we turn them into one single number, we get an 8. Number 8 is the number of the ruler. You see, the ruler, the king. What does this number mean? The key word for number 8 is power. Number 8 is a number of great determination, is a number that wants to solve problems, is a very reliable number, is a number that is very well organized, that wants absolutely to accomplish his purposes. When he starts something, he has to finish up things. And he wants to see that he actually creates, that he is a sort of a creator here in our life, in our world. But he does have a mission. He does have an important mission. You see, its purpose is to bring the spirit into the material world, thanks to the experiences collected in his past. So, number 8 wants to bring the spirit into this world. This is the first thing that we have to figure. But how can he do that? Well, 19 is a karmic test, is a karmic number that is a karmic test. There are only 4 karmic numbers, okay? 19 is the last one. And 19 means something very special. Let's see it. 19 is the leader, you see? But what sort of leader is it? And why is 19 a karmic number? Well, number 19 is composed by 10 plus 9, or we can also split it into 3, 1, 0, and 9. If we look up at these numbers, number 1 is the warrior, number 0 is transition, and number 9 is the liberator. What do number 1 and number 9 stand for? This is number 1, the warrior. And number 9 is a number of someone that actually loves to do things by himself, and a number of a person of courage, that loves to be brave, that loves to find new strategies in life, He likes to go where no one has gone so far. And he doesn't wait for the others. The key word for this number is independency. So this is a number that can become sometimes selfish and egotic sometimes when it exaggerates, because he loves to be recognized for his enterprises. So number 1 is a number that might go in a superego situation, in a superego dimension. Number 1 is also ourselves. A human being is always somehow a number 1. When I examine numerological frameworks, when there is no number 1, which happens very rarely, but it does happen, it means that that person really suffers into his or her life. That person really feels like she's here on the earth, but she doesn't want to be here. So she feels like if life fell onto his shoulders and it's a burden that she or he has to carry. She doesn't, or he doesn't have a good relationship with life. It's a burden. Number 9 is something completely different. Number 9 is the liberator. Number 9 is a sort of a little magical number because it includes all the numbers. Who is the liberator and what does the liberator want to do? Because the liberator wants to feel the unconditional love. It's a number of great sensitivity and a number that really wants to do something useful for the spiritual evolution of everybody. So number 9 thinks not just of himself, not just of his family, not just of what's close to it, but it thinks of something wider than this. It needs to do something that can be really useful to anybody. To feel unconditional love is one of the deepest and hardest challenge that we face in our life. You know that it's very hard to feel that because I always say this. Do you have an example of unconditional love? Can anyone write in the commentaries an example of unconditional love for me, please? We used to say when we love our kids, that's an example of unconditional love, right? Maybe. But sometimes I say, what happens if your kids one day, when they're old, grown-ups, let's say so, do something very bad? Maybe one kills another person. How do you leave that? Do you still love them as you used to? Does that happen? A mother. A mother. So to love someone deeply into his soul means to see and to realize that anything that happens or that person do, any action that person carries on into his life, his or her life, I mean nasty action, that happens because there is a wound into his soul. Unconditional love means the ability to see beyond the action, to see the soul of the other person. Easier said than done. Yeah, unconditional love is an illusion. Well, it's not an illusion, but it's very hard to be reached. We can achieve it after a lot of soul work. Yes, that's correct. I'll give you an example with a little story, okay? A little Zen story. There are two souls that are not into these dimensions. They are in the other dimension. They have incarnated on the earth several times, yet they are speaking to each other and they're saying they are sort of appreciating what happened to them, their lighter on the earth and during all the incarnations they've been through. And at a certain point, one says to the other, you know, done a great job. We went through several experiences. You see in what high dimensions we're staying now. At the same time, there's something missing. What is it? The other goes, well, we haven't experienced unconditional love. The other says, you're right. We need to do that experience. We can't go any further if we don't do that. How can we manage that? How can we achieve that? And the others say, we have to go back on Earth. You know, we live on the Earth, and Earth is quite a complex planet. Probably you know that. So actually, when you live a life on the Earth, you sort of get a lot of points in the evolution process, okay? So they decide that they have to reincarnate on the Earth. But one says, wow, you know, I do want to find unconditional love within my soul, and I do want to feel it. So I'll become such a lovely, nice, beautiful person. Everybody will love me, and I'll be loving anybody. I will see the soul in any single person I will meet. I will recognize the light that stays into anybody's body. So the other one goes, well, if you're going to do that, I have to incarnate into a monster, in a person that will do such ugly things that they will not want me to be named into the history books. They will want just to cancel my names in the future. Well, the other goes, why do you have to do that? Well, you said you want to see the soul into anybody else's. So if beyond my actions, you will see that actually there is me, and I'm like this, into that body, into that person, and you will be able to love me anyhow, then you will have felt the unconditional love. The other one goes, wow, you're going to be suffering a lot, because when you come on Earth just to spread out negativity, the only thing you get back is negativity. And the other says, you're right, but that's the only way. Well, you know what I'll do then? The one that becomes all nice says to the other one, I'll come to find you. I'll try to find you. Okay, then they start going to the Earth. The soul that is going to become very nice and beautiful and loving is in front of the other one. The one that is going to incarnate in a very nasty person is just behind that, behind it. And at a certain point, she has a sort of a little doubtful moment and taps on the other shoulders. That one stops and goes, yes, what's the matter? Please, when we arrive on the Earth, try to find me very quickly. So this was a little Zen story to let you know what unconditional love is. To see that actually there is a soul, no matter what you have done. And that soul may be acted that way because it's wounded, it's hurted, or because it didn't have the chance to learn something different. We can let a person restore from any action she has done. We can help her stand up on her feet again, only putting back in her hands all the positive parts that belong to her, only showing her or him his positive parts. We never start from a negative part. A negative part is something that stops us from going further. to know that we can do something nice, that we have something positive, is a push toward our life. It's something that really sort of compels us to go on, to make something good out of us. Okay? So, number 9 wants to feel the unconditional love. How can he do that? We've been talking about number 1, the warrior, a strong number, brave, courage. He wants to find new ways, new schemes, new strategies, and it has to become a 9. How can it do that? Well, number 1, the warrior, is the independency at the beginning. Number 0 is transition. What's a 0? 0 is the void. We have to experiment the void, to sort of lose everything, to understand the importance, to understand what really matters, to understand what is really important to us and our life. So the warrior has to get rid of his arms, of its helmet, to become human again, and experiment what the emptiness is, the void is. Because in the void, only when we experiment the void, we can find ourselves back. And in that moment, we experiment also the wholeness, that anything that happens to us is always related to anything that happens in the universe. And when we go through that process, and that is what happened to us during the lockdown, we had to give up to everything. We really had to think of what was important to us, of what matters into our life. We had to think of our loved ones. Maybe some of us couldn't stay with our loved ones. Some others were forced to stay with person they had a difficult relationship with, for example. And through that sort of purification, we have to get rid of the ego of the warrior to become the liberator. And the key word for the liberator is to accomplish. Accomplish what? Accomplish the task to become someone that helps the other to evolve onto their spiritual path. So if we consider this number 19 the way I've just done, we have to find the wholeness back to become warriors, but warriors of the light. The 19 is the leader, the chosen one. And the key word is action. It's a number of action. It does act. It doesn't sit and pray. It acts. Okay. I hope this was clear enough, because I have many other things to let you know. This is just the beginning. If we examine coronavirus 19, then we find out that the sum of this number is 56, and the sum of 56 is 11. And 11 is a master number. What does master number mean? There are only 4 master numbers. Master numbers are very special because they are in direct contact with the other dimensions. They are portals. They are numbers standing here on this earth to bring information from the higher levels to this level, to bring here in order a setting that doesn't belong to the earth, but belongs to higher dimensions. So to help us to get closer and closer to a higher dimension level. The number 11 is the genius. You see, this is the genius. And the key word for the genius is revelation. A genius has these revelations going through it all the times. And he also sometimes, it also feels excluded, not actually considered, because he does have something special. The genius has something special, and the others perceive that. But the genius just get the information here on the earth, and it must be very well aligned to the earth, to his heart, to actually put those revelation into practice, to be useful for the humankind and for the humanity to develop and to go further on their spiritual path. So, if we go back to this, coronavirus wants to bring us the message that some information are coming from the other dimension in order for us to use them to get closer and elevate our frequencies and bring them closer to the next dimensions. They are asking us to do a quantum leap. And that's not all. Coronavirus has, in its being number 11, takes a risk with it, brings a risk with it. 11 can also consider 1 plus 1. Do you remember what the warrior is? Number 1 is the warrior. So number 1 plus number 1 means ego plus ego. I have to be a genius, but I have to remain into humility. It's very important to be humble, because otherwise I am not going towards the direction that the situation is pointing to me, but I'm just going exactly the other direction. So the risk is that I understand I am a portal towards the other dimension. There are some information going through me, and because I'm number 11, and I just make that an element of my ego. I have the relations. No, that's the risk we have to overcome. That's why number 19, as we have seen before, means to get rid of all our egos, of all our need of being recognized for all our enterprises, or just because we think we have done something. Okay, and to become someone that says, I'm just here and I am just a mean through which an energy coming from other dimension with important information flows through. I'm just here to serve that energy. It is not me. I'm just here to be useful to that energy. Okay? In that case, I am a warrior, but I become the leader, a warrior for the light, a warrior of light. Besides that, 19, if we sum it up, makes 10, 1 plus 0, which are the two numbers that compose a 10, make 1. So 11 plus 1, you never sum up, you never add up, sum up numbers, you get a 12. And 1 plus 2 is a 3. And number 3 is the jester. What does the jester do? The jester is the funniest, happiest, and most positive numbers among all of them. The jester is the number of the positive thinking, the number that has free self-expression, the numbers that loves to be with the others, loves to welcome the others, loves to love the others, loves to talk to them. It's a very creative number, a number of a very high communication capability. It's the number of joy. It's the number of lightness. It's the number of the positive thinking. It's the number of the trust into life. This means that if we go through the karmic test that has been offered to us by the situation determined by the coronavirus 19, we are going to experiment the gesture, which means the positive thinking, the trust into life. But in order to do that, we have to experiment the transition, the void, the loss of our point of reference, of our of the situation that we daily face. During the lockdown, we couldn't go out. There are some countries in which the lockdown is still going on. And that is because we have to rethink everything over, because we have to go through the trial of being a warrior, but becoming a humble warrior. The warrior has to become the liberator, the one that frees the other souls to let them go through a path of light, and that leads them towards their spiritual evolution. You see, COVID stands for 8, the purpose to bring spirit into the material world, thanks to the experiences that number 8 collected in the past. And that's important because humankind has collected so many experiences that we shouldn't need another one to know that. We should have already done what COVID-19 has come here to make us do. Maybe it wasn't enough, or maybe we haven't understood enough about it. So, through means of this passage that we see, we might receive some information from the other dimension, becoming the genius, some revelations from the other dimension, in order to make this world better. And if we go through the karmic test, to the karmic proof, then we will experiment the gesture, which is the joy, the positive thinking. Here I have summarized for you what COVID-19 wants to bring to us. We need to experiment a total loss and a personal void in order to find the real ourselves and the real truth. We have to go over our personal ego in order to become light warriors, to channel light and to bring back spirituality in a materialistic world. If we accomplish this, we will be trustful in life. We will find our way to proceed with lightness and joy, and we will achieve our possibility to self-express ourselves as individuals making part of the wholeness. Because the most important thing is that COVID wanted to explain us that we are all related. We had to experiment to be separated from our loved ones. We have to experiment how to cope in a family where maybe there were some difficult relationships to carry on. We had to learn to cope with the others. We had really to rethink everything over. So anything that happens to us is an opportunity, and this is what COVID-19 stands for. Okay, so I hope this could be understandable, and if you have any comment, please let me know. I hear somebody, I can see the names of the people that are writing to me, so please forgive me for that. I just see that someone says your explanation makes total sense. Thank you. Actually, it's not my explanation, it's the numbers explanation. The numbers do not lie. They're always quite sharp. They're always quite sharp. You see, Number 19. When we have numbers that are karmic tests, they're quite hard. They're quite hard. Number 19 mostly is the last one of the 4 karmic numbers that we have, at least in the type of numerology I teach. And that happens, number 19 is a number that really wants to let you know that we all are related to another dimensions, but we do have to be centered and connected with our heart. Otherwise, we receive a lot of information from the other dimensions. But if we are not centered on our heart, we use it in an egoistic and egotic way, in a very selfish manner. So when we have a karmic number, and this number, of course, involved all of us, involved the world. We had a pandemic, so the whole world has been involved into that. The whole world is called to become the genius, to become the accomplisher and the genius. I'll show you back again. The liberator, the accomplisher, the one that helps the other to reach their best, to become the best they can. How can number 9 do that? Well, receiving the revelation of the number 11. Okay, I'll tell you once again, coronavirus 19, if we sum everything up, we get number 11, one of the master number. The keyword is revelation. It's a number strictly connected with the other dimension. It receives energy from the other dimension directly. It receives information from God. We could say that. In order to spread on the earth divine information, very holy information, informations that can help us to change things, to make this world closer and to the upper worlds, to the other dimension, to the worlds where God lives, where love lives. And in order to do this, we have to accept that we have to go through the karmic proof number 19. Number 19 just says, I'm here, I'm at your disposal, I'm here to serve you. It's not me that act, although it's a number of action. But I'm not the owner of the action. I'm just the executor because I let another energy go through myself and I'll be driven by that energy. I'll be led to do anything that can help humanity to get better. And that's why COVID means also 8, bring spirit into the material world. If you read it from the beginning to the end, or the opposite way, you see they always get the same meaning. And it always ends up that coronavirus 19, if we do go through the karmic test, we'll be staying and we'll be living in the positive thinking, in a joy, in the lightness, and in the self-expression. I hope this was clear enough. It's not very easy to speak of this matter, but it is good to see that actually anything that happens to us, even if sometimes it's hard to be carried on our shoulder, it's not just a punishment. It's not just an useless or unmeaningful burden. It is something that will help us to go further. We have noticed, for example, during the COVID experience, how nice it was not to have pollution. We all witnessed how many animals started to get closer to towns. Many videos were running on Facebook, for example, about ducks and their little duckies going through towns. And that was quite nice. everything was so silent, was so calm. And that was due to the fact that we had to experiment the zero, the void. You remember that? The void. The void, which is also the wholeness. When we are in a void, we actually feel like we are embedded into something, like if there was a cloud around us. Because we are never alone, we are all connected. The zero is, I lose everything. You know, in my life, when I experimented really what to lose everything means, that was another starting point for me. Because at that point, I really could start my life the way I wanted it to be. Because I had nothing else and nothing more to lose. So I was very lucky in that moment. The fear to lose things is something really, really doesn't help our evolution. Sometimes we grasp into that thing because we don't want to lose it. And we sacrifice so much of our life to keep it. And maybe it's just a crumble. Respect what we have, respect what we could have. Sometimes we really have to let everything go. Experiment to the loss means now I can start over again and I can do what I want. I'm not afraid of losing something. I've done it. I have already lost it. There's nothing else I can lose. So I'm free. This is the void. And when I'm free, I decide what is really worth it to me and for me. And I can stand from that. This is the message that COVID-19 wanted to bring to us. So it's ending, thank God, at least here in Italy, in Europe, although unfortunately in Asia and in South America, they're having their peak, their highest pitch right now, actually. Letting go of the fear to lose. Yes, exactly. We never lose anything. It's just an impression, it's an illusion. We live in a sort of a matrix, like in the film, that lead us to think that. Instead, when we are always related to everything, we're not alone in the universe. The universe is always taking care of us. The angels are taking care of us. The love is taking care of us. God, which is pure energy, takes care of us. We're never alone. If something happens to us, it's because we have to understand something we haven't understood before. When something happens to us, a strong experience occurs in our life, it's not because we've done something wrong, but we actually maybe didn't hear the previous calls. We didn't pay attention to the fact that life was telling us that thing, was trying to help to drive our attention to that. And we didn't pay attention to that. So we need a stronger experience. That is how things happen. Yes, it's an illusion that we'll lose something. We can't lose our feelings, our thoughts, our positive parts. And we have a beautiful thing, a beautiful possibility, the possibility to transform our negative parts. I've been telling you the little stories of the two souls at the beginning of this live streaming. And to be a light warrior, to be the elected one, the chosen one, means to be the one that always understands there is a soul into the others. And there is always something good into the other souls. And I will take care of that part of that person, of his or her powerful, beautiful, positive part. This is what we have been called to. And it's not an easy challenge. It's not an easy challenge. You know, maybe you didn't know, here in Italy, a few years ago, at least something like 15 years ago, maybe, two adolescents, they were about 15, 16, 16, 17, a couple. They broke into the girl's house, and they killed her little brother and her mother, and they stabbed her mother with 40 stabs, okay? And while her mother was dying, she said, I forgive you. They didn't kill her father just because he wasn't home. Of course, they've been arrested immediately. And when her father got to know what his daughter had done, the first thing he said was, I will never ever let my daughter alone. He knew what unconditional love was. And that girl, in her incarnation, had chosen those parents because they could bear such an experience. They could heal her soul because her father could see the wound into her soul. He's always been very close to his daughter. His daughter spent 15, 16 years in jail. I'm not sure. She got out a couple of years ago. She graduated in prison in psychology. She worked while in prison as a volunteer, and she is a completely reestablished person. She recovered from that because she got to learn what love is, what unconditional love is. Unconditional love can heal any wounds, any soul. When will we all get respite from Corona? From Corona? What do you mean? I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. When will we all get respite from Corona? Sorry, can you make that question a little bit more clear for me? Clearer for me, please. So, I'm almost running out of my time. Coronavirus came here to give us a very important lesson, tell us something very important. And maybe some of us understood, some others couldn't catch that lesson, some others could. Doesn't matter. The beautiful thing is that life and the universe and love will give us other chances. You know why? Because in the evolution process, we are all called to become unconditional love. And no one will be left behind. Maybe it'll take longer to bring all of us there, but we are a whole, which means no one can be left behind. Any one of us, any single soul is needed to make a whole. And we all need to experiment both parts, bad and good parts, like I told you in the Zen little story. We all need to experiment everything, good and bad, to be able to make a difference between what is important, what we want to keep, and what we don't. That's the most beautiful part of the disciplinary approach. New chances and opportunities. Yes, that's so. New chances and new opportunities. We will always have the opportunity to change anything in our life. Anything. As long as we wish that, we'll be given the chance to do it. You know, we die when we don't want anything anymore. When we stop wishing, when we stop having desires, then it's time for us to leave our body. Because wishes and desires are vital pushes, vital inputs. They push us, almost kick us towards and into life stream. So as long as we want to change things, we'll be given the opportunity. That's how great the universe is. How do numbers can condition our spiritual life? Wow, When we choose, I have very little time for this question. It is something that I dealt with in my first live streaming here in Bridges of Light International. Numbers let frequencies out of themselves, and those frequencies mean something. So our numerological framework says exactly what purpose we want for this incarnation for us. And for purpose, I do not mean I want to become very rich and famous, but it's an behavior and an attitude that we want to sort of integrate in our path. Okay, maybe I'm a very stiff person, and in this life I want to become more flexible. That's the part I want to integrate. That's my purpose in this life. And they also tell us, they call us, our number really call us towards a spiritual path. It's always depending on us whether we're going to listen to the call or not. But they are always set in such a way, any single person's frame, numerological framework is set in such a way that numbers really want to help you in your spiritual evolution. Even Hitler had number 11 in a special position in his frameworks. But he didn't listen to the spiritual call. The spiritual call wanted him to realize what he was doing and to change his path. But he didn't listen. Our numerological frameworks always tries to lead us to our best, to what can be the best for us and what can make us happiest, the happiest, actually. When I do numerological frameworks lectures, it takes me quite a couple of hours, sometimes even 3 hours with some people, because there's so much to see and say and consider. And there are also numbers that give us their influence in some periods of our life. We have 4 numerological cycles in our life, and those cycles have given the influence of one different number every cycle, and those numbers are a challenge. They want us to do something. They want us to change something. And they always try to call us to be our best. They always try to put us in a connection with our soul. When you say, there is this saying, put a hand on your conscience. You never say, put your hand on your soul. Why? Because the soul is perfect. It's the conscious that has to arise at the level of the soul. We have different level of consciousness. Can they influence our talents, the numbers? Yes, from a numerological framework, you see that person, how he or she expresses her talents, or if there is a block about it. Yes, you can see all those things, absolutely. Numbers say so much, you won't believe it. Okay. So, thank you for being here with me. I hope I was clear enough with the explanation about COVID-19 and its lesson. And I'll be here next Monday at 6 p.m. as usual. Thanks for being here with me. And I wish you a good evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.